Today on the 01581 Let's Talk, a conversation with our town manager about the upcoming town meeting and articles on the warrant, as well as a continued conversation about the opportunity for the town to purchase a community center. Hi, and welcome back. I'm joined by my guest today, Town Manager Kristi Williams. Kristi's a regular guest on the show. She appears every week. She's getting extra airtime recently because we have an important meeting coming up, that being fall town meeting, which will be on Monday, October 16th. There are 15 articles on the warrant. We're going to go through some of those today just to highlight them. Every article is important. Every article needs to be considered in some form or fashion, but Kristi's just going to walk us through a few of those, and then we'll save the back half of the show for a continued conversation about one of the key articles, if you will, or two articles that revolve around the community center. So, Kristi, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay, take us through the warrant and the highlights you want to kind of call out.
Sure. So, the fall town meeting is October 16th at 7 p.m. at the Westborough High School, and so folks should definitely join us because we have some exciting things on the warrant. We have. I'll sort of walk through, I guess, some of the articles. So, the first article is. Right now it's prior year bill. We've left that on the warrant because, as people know, if we have a prior year bill, we need a town meeting to approve it. But to date, we don't have a prior year bill, so we'll probably do a passover of that article.
Okay.
Article 2 is the budget adjustments for fiscal 24, and so that's really the article on the warrant that will have an impact on current year taxes. So if all of those items that are listed, with all of the budget adjustment items that are listed, pass, then the total estimated increase for the average single family is $627, which is about $130 less than we had estimated at the annual town meeting.
Right.
So to kind of go through those, the first two are the cable TV enterprise budget and golf course enterprise expenses, and those are both adjustments within enterprise accounts, so they actually don't have an impact on taxes, but they are a budget adjustment. The other lines are for the finance department, salary and wages. That's an increase of $20,000 to fund the retirement of our current finance director. So
Sure.
She's leaving. A lot of times we'll leave those positions vacant for a period of time because it's such an important position. We can't do that. So we actually have already hired someone. The board approved that, and he'll start pretty immediately. So in order to pay her what is due to her, we're asking for that increase. Then there's an increase in finance department expenses, and that's related to our co-star.
Kristi, can we just go back on that that item? So I think that folks may not understand, like they might think like, well, but there's a separate retirement account.
Oh,
there isn't.
There's not. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So when someone retires, their vacation or whatever their benefits are that are due upon that retirement date, the town has to pay them.
Yeah.
And sometimes we may not see that budget increase because maybe there's a gap in the hiring time. So as you just said, we can't leave this position open. So I think it's important for folks to understand that there's not some other bucket of money where we sort of pull from some sort of retirement reserves.
No, that's a good point.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Sorry.
The finance department expenses is about $3,800, and that's for an increase in a contract with co-stars. So co-stars, where we're able to look at commercial leases and things like that. So our assessing department uses it, our EDC uses it.
Yep.
In the fire department, we have an adjustment to salary and wages, and then separately expenses, and that's related to the request for additional firefighters. So that's really gone through a pretty long process. Sure. The chief had asked for 4 additional firefighters. The town meeting funded 1 for this upcoming budget. We went through the ARPA process, talking about allocating that money for these positions, and ultimately it was decided that one position would be funded, but the other two should come back to town meeting.
Sure.
And so that's that.
Sure.
That's that article. There is an error on the warrant, so it does say 169,259 for the salary and wages increase, and it's actually lower. This original amount was based on the full fiscal year, and because we ended up at October town meeting,
Right.
we were able to lower that. And then there's a decrease in the landfill budget of $50,000, and that's really related to the increase that was estimated
Sure.
back in March, and then the difference between that estimated increase and the actual when we signed the contract with Harvey's.
Great.
So
Okay. All right. And again, that estimated increase is $667. Is that what you said? $667 the average tax bill.
no, 627.
$627.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Articles 1 and 2, hopefully pretty straightforward. We never know. Let's pause on Articles 3 and 4 because we'll get back to that. Those relate to the community center. And
Sure.
so.
So there's, following the community center articles, there's 2 articles related to settlement funds. One is just a settlement for a piece of litigation that folks may have seen on the board's executive session. And it was related to compliance with the affordable housing requirement. And so we were able to settle that case, and the town will receive a settlement amount of $950,000. That comes into the town, to the general fund. But the intention is for it to fund affordable housing. And so as part of the settlement, the board is sponsoring this article to move the money to the Affordable Housing Trust.
Right.
And then the opioid settlement similarly comes to the town, to the general fund, but has really very specific requirements for how it's spent. So what we've been doing is moving that money into an article that can only be spent per the settlement agreement.
Sure. Okay. And how much is that settlement on the opioid?
So that's just about $39,000 for this article.
For this article. Okay.
Yep. And then we have a couple kind of capital articles. One is public safety radios. Both chiefs are sponsoring this article, and it's for some spare radios and also the replacement of batteries in their
They're
radios.
old and they need radios.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Not the Chiefs aren't old. The radios are old. Just
The
to be
radios,
clear.
the
Just to be clear.
The library's coming with a project for their building management system, which just needs to be upgraded.
Sure. And I don't recall the meeting at which our library director came to us. I feel like it was like maybe the second. It was in September, but her presentation on this, because I was sitting there going, why are we updating building management systems when we're actively contemplating and pursuing a renovation project? And she did a great job, my opinion, explaining why this is so necessary now. So I encourage folks to go back. And of course, our library director, Maureen Amiot, remains available for questions if folks need that. But thanks.
Great. Article 9 is the Lake Chauncey external loading analysis. So folks might remember that we funded a study of Lake Chauncey because it related to the algae blooms and really trying to understand where that's coming from. And so this is sort of the next phase of that analysis.
Sure. Okay.
So,
Okay.
we have a roadway acceptance of Quick Farm Road. So that's actually been on some select board agendas recently and planning board. And so this is coming to the town for your approval.
Pretty straightforward process where we accept after a developer has done all of their requirements under the planning board or site plans or permitting, whatever that
Exactly.
process is.
Yep.
And then the town accepts those. Yep. Okay.
The next 2 articles are related to water treatment. There's actually zoning articles, and the need for setting setbacks to do upgrades of water treatment plants.
Right.
So those actually were at a public hearing with the planning board on Tuesday night.
Okay.
So.
And this is related to the PFAS. One of them is related to PFAS, and the other one is at I think one of the pumping stations over on Morse. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's a request on Article 13 to increase the article from the annual town meeting. It was $6.4 million at annual town meeting, and this was to do water treatment improvements. And so there's a need for an increase. It's actually not listed. The number's not listed in here, but we're estimating about 1.8 million is what the
So it's a
request
total
will
of
be.
what, 8.2?
Yeah.
8.2 million. So this is a big ticket item. I know the board had several questions for Director Pant when he presented to us, and really it is the cost of this work. I mean, for folks who maybe have followed this, PFAS is all over the news, and so I don't want to assume why the increases are happening, but I think it's safe to assume that given the demand of fixing these solutions, demand sometimes, and supply and demand, basic economics, it's driving up prices. So it's work that we need to do as a town to ensure water quality. The other piece of that, though, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristi, is where as part of this kind of state, I don't know if it's federal as well, it's kind of like a grant program. It's like a zero interest loan, right?
So we're able to access a loan through the state.
Right, but we still have to go through the article appropriation.
Yes, because we're still doing borrowing.
Right.
So and that debt service is funded through the Water Enterprise Fund. So that's a user fee impact as opposed to a tax impact.
Tax impact, right. Okay, thank you.
And then the last two articles are just related to structure of the Affordable Housing Trust, and it's really an effort to, now that we have the Affordable Housing Trust, to really create some processes around some of the work that we do, specifically the Housing Partnership Committee. So we have a Housing Partnership Committee currently. We've actually had a really tough time finding members for it, and so this would allow the Affordable Housing Trust to create a subcommittee or act
You're
in
going
that
to lift
role.
that work up.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Okay, so in the time that we have left, let's swing back to Articles 3 and 4, those being regarding the community center. So let's go to 4 first, just to confuse the viewers, because I think it's a little bit simpler, and that is, Kristi's going to move to that slide. So as part of this process, we, by process I mean the select board has been working on this potential acquisition for several months. That process naturally requires lawyers. It will require, if we decide to purchase the building, due diligence process. So Kristi, if you can take us through what's required, what we're asking for in Article 4.
So as we've said, the opportunity to purchase the building creates an opportunity to fit up or plan specifically the lower level, because it is really a wide open space. And so when we think about how we're going to decide what's in there, I keep saying it's not like a fire station or a police station where you have to have very specific things.
Right.
This is a community center, so it really can kind of be what we want.
Right.
And so understanding that the senior center would move into that space, it's a very large space, and so we want some community engagement around understanding what that would be. So the first cost within this article is that public engagement. So that $85,000 would fund someone to come in and help us with visioning workshops, doing community outreach, some additional analysis of the building, and really get us to schematic design so that we're able to identify a cost for fit up and come back to town meeting with that number. And so that quote that we've received is $85,000. We haven't gone through a process. That's just an estimate that we got so that we were able to
put something here in the warrant.
Here. The estimated maintenance and utilities, that $75,350, that amount is based on the Forbes Municipal Building. So the Forbes Municipal Building is about 56,000 square feet, about 15% smaller than the building we're talking about. So we've taken what we budgeted for fiscal 24 for utilities and maintenance, and we've increased it by 15%. And then we actually took one third of that, understanding that we might close on the property in March. We need to fund those utilities and maintenance through the end of the fiscal year. So that $75,000 as part of this article is operating. So it's really operating the building through the end of the fiscal year.
Understood. Okay.
And then estimated due diligence. So we started to do some of our due diligence, but we hadn't budgeted for that. And so that due diligence is a environmental assessment, a phase 1 environmental assessment. And then it's also bringing in experts to look at the pool and all of the equipment and the rooftop units and all of the mechanics of the building, as well as a structural assessment.
And that ties back to that investment in due diligence is important it's important in any purchase, but it also ties back to how we negotiated the purchase and sale, because we wanted to be able to create protections for the town, such that if the due diligence comes back, you know, I don't want to say we're only in it for $35,000, because there's been a lot of time and effort, but we have the ability to walk away if we find something there that just says, you know, this is going to significantly alter our vision and use of the building, and therefore the cost to improve it.
Right.
Okay, so this is about just a little shy of $200,000. The funding source would be free cash as it's presented, and therefore no tax impact. Okay.
Right.
All right. All right, so let's go backwards just to confuse everyone. So Article 3 is actually the purchase of the community center. So one of the questions that came up in our first public information session, which is available through Westborough TV. Thank you very much. And all of this information, all the presentations, the FAQ, which continues to be updated, which is now about 9 pages long, I've got it here, is available on the town's website right on the top page. So you can spend lots of time, listening to and understanding kind of the conversations and learning more about this. But one of the questions that came up was, so is Article 3 asking for 8.8 million, or can we propose a lower number? So to be clear, this is not like a proposed budget where we've seen sometimes in the past at town meetings, someone has said, maybe a voter suggested, we need to lower all the budgets by 0.5%. That is not the case here. This is a negotiated price. It went through a process. Kristi, you were involved in the negotiations. Ian Johnson and I also worked on that as representatives to the board. It is the price.
It's the price. Yep. Right. Yep. And I think another thing that we're hearing a lot is why is it happening so fast?
Yes.
And I think it's a fair question. Certainly, we, the board, myself, we've been working on this for a really long time. Really anxious to bring it to the public.
Right.
But we had to structure the offer and understand, if it was the right decision for the community. And so ultimately that was the decision, was that it was something that we wanted to bring to town meeting.
Yep.
But it is a time-sensitive offer.
Right.
And so so it has to go on the October town meeting warrant. And to Shelby's point, I think it's, and I think Ian said it the other night as well, if folks are not comfortable with the 8.8 million, then they really should be moving to defeat the article, because it won't be that lower number, and it won't come back. This article won't come back.
Right, and I think tied to this also, and understandably so, folks have said, well, why didn't we do sort of all this public engagement as part of this process before it came to town meeting, so we would have a better sense of maybe what the cost would be, or how we're really going to use this, so they feel like this is a good, investment and use of tax dollars. And again, the reality of it is that the negotiations just wrapped up, and the seller, I get it, doesn't want to wait, till March for all of this process. This is the opportunity that's before the town, and we have a choice to support it or defeat it.
Yep. So this shows here just that the 8.8 million works out to about $139 per square foot. And in our presentations, folks will see that to build a new building is about $800 per square foot. We talked about that here as well. That's what we were told to estimate, and that's also what we've seen in surrounding communities. So the town of Upton recently built a community center, and it averaged out about $800 per square foot.
Sure. Do you recall the size of theirs? You mentioned it in the presentation.
It was about 15,000 square feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
less 12 million.
So slightly bigger than the current senior center.
Yeah, almost double.
Almost double.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And so this slide here shows that the average over the life of the borrow, so that's 20 years, would be the $84. But the highest year, which will be fiscal 25, is the $113. So, and to the average single family.
Sure. Remind our viewers, when we borrow, is it an initial peak and then it goes down, or does it fluctuate across the course of the borrow?
So it will go down after the
Okay.
13. And actually, if folks want to look at the full estimated debt schedule, we won't know until we borrow what the interest rate is.
Yep.
But that estimated debt schedule is actually also on the website.
Okay, great, thank you. I think we might have another slide that we wanted to cover.
So this slide is not necessarily related to the warrant, but just if we were to move forward with the purchase of the building, we would have additional costs in the fiscal 25 budget.
Right.
And so that's the purpose of this slide, is to show some estimates on there.
Yep.
So I already talked about the estimated utilities, what that's based on.
Yep.
We also have this estimated common area maintenance. That's a number that we got from the seller, so that's a solid number. And
just on that, on the common area maintenance, so the seller owns and operates the larger Bay State Commons property, and they will continue to make kind of improvements and even basic things like sweeping and planting and plowing. We're on the snow season here coming up. So that's what that 157 represents.
Yes.
And it's a percent of basically the overall.
Yeah, it's based on our square footage.
Square footage,
Yeah.
thank you. Yep.
And so that's showing that in fiscal 25 we will have an increase because we have to take into account this new building. Also some additional personnel costs that we anticipate in fiscal 25. We feel like when we close on the building, we'll be able to move the recreation department in pretty quickly. But when we say that, we're talking about current staff.
Sure.
And then these folks would be hired for fiscal 25.
Sure.
So this is a community center manager, an additional custodian, and then an increase in program and volunteer coordinator hours. Our current person in that position works 25-hour a week. We'd want to increase it to 40. And that position specifically exists at the senior center.
Yep.
And so that would continue to be at senior center, but would have an increased hours.
Okay.
So I think it's really important, and I want to point it out more, that these are additional personnel costs that we anticipate on the budget. We do anticipate the need for lots of part-time staff, instructors, attendance at the center. But similar to how we run our playground programs in the summertime, we would anticipate those salaries to be covered through fees.
Yep.
So
Program
recreation
user
revolving
fees,
account.
right. Yep.
Right, exactly.
Just back to the maintenance. So just in case folks were like, wait a second, I saw a number of about 75,000 in estimated maintenance. That number just includes carrying costs for the current fiscal year. That's why
the 75,000 is not the full 12 months.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yep. Let's see here.
And
is there anything else we wanted to talk about? So the impact, again, these are estimates on the 521,000 for FY25.
right.
Would be 67. When we're adding that to the highest year, then that's how we're getting the 180.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
This is just a slide kind of talking about what we just said, all the program costs. The recreation department has a revolving account. That's how they pay they take in fees and then they pay out for programs. The senior center operates a little bit different. They do have a budget for programming. However, they also have a lot of direct pay. So someone might come in, is taking a class, they directly pay the instructor, and so that doesn't go through the budget.
Different. Yep. Okay. All right.
And then just wanting to be really, thinking through the future of the building, that we would have to do building fit up, which we talked about once we've conceptualized the space. We have some available funds for that. I think the board is supportive of using those towards the fit up costs so that we can minimize any impact on the taxes. These are a couple of them. So one is the sale of real estate. That's money that we get when we sell property. If we were to sell the senior center, that would obviously increase that 1.8 million. And then we get these Pulte payments, which currently that stabilization account is at that 2 million. So, so lots of funding sources that we feel like we could leverage in order to make the building fit up to cover the building fit up or minimize it, understanding that
Right.
we don't know what folks are going to want, and
Yeah.
so there could be big ticket items that we're not
Sure.
anticipating.
And I, I fully appreciate that folks are like, okay, we're going to buy it for 8.8, and we've got some other, costs that are associated with it in Article 4. But we just don't know the unknown. And with full appreciation for
Yes.
that, yes, that is correct. But you have to, my view is you have to see the opportunity and the cost of this opportunity, that being, you on prior slides, and you've said this multiple times, if we were to build a building, not to say we would build, a building this size, but even if you were to project, we're at 8,000 square feet right now for the senior center. We know there's more space needed. We know the recreation needs indoor programming space. So even if we were to be in the 40,000 square foot, you do the math on the, $800 dollars per square foot, you're very quickly in the $30-40 million just to construct the building. That doesn't include land. Now, we do have land over Lake Chauncey, but that's, that's just to build a building, right? So, I think for folks that are struggling with the unknown, I guess I would say sort of lean into that. Yes, there is an unknown around fit up costs, but we have the ability to control that. But the opportunity is here and now. So if we don't want to pursue this opportunity, then, as we discussed earlier, then I would not encourage you to do this, but you should vote to defeat the article. I do support this article. I think it's a great opportunity for the town. It addresses many of the unmet needs that we've talked about for our seniors, addresses, economic goals and elements of the master plan, and again, all of those have been articulated in many presentations. So I think this represents a great opportunity for our town to really think about how do we bring the community together across many generations and create a like a landmark building for Westborough that will be is an investment for generations to come. So anything else, Kristi?
I don't think so, but it would be great to have lots of folks show up. I think we'll have really good discussion specifically on these articles.
Yeah.
So October 16th at 7 o'clock.
7 p.m. And I would encourage folks to get there as early as possible, so that we'll plan for adequate seating. It may include overflow into the gym space. We'll certainly anticipate a pretty large turnout for this meeting, and encourage you to stay for the whole thing. It's only 15 articles, but we did, the board, working with the finance committee, the advisory finance committee had recommended that the article for the community center be shifted forward, understanding it's going to be of high interest. We've all spent a lot of time talking about this. You're probably tired of us talking about it here. But we did move that forward intentionally so that folks could be there for that important vote. So I think with that, next show we won't talk about town meeting. We'll talk about something else. And I appreciate your time, Kristi. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the 01581 Let's Talk. Be well, take care, and come to town meeting. Hope to see you there.